The crystal throne room of the Volanthi Empire stretched upward like a frozen waterfall. Light from 3 distant suns poured through walls of living glass, casting rainbow shadows across the marble floor. Hundreds of courtiers stood in perfect rows, their insectoid bodies covered in shells of deep purple and gold. They had ruled this sector of space for 12,000 years. They had conquered 30 worlds. They feared nothing. Princess Queen Sereth Valcora sat upon her throne and looked down at the gift the Galactic Council. And Senerdad, it was a human. He stood at the base of the crystal steps, wearing simple black armor that looked almost primitive next to the gleaming shells of her royal guard. He was short by Volanthi standards, barely reaching the chest of her smallest warrior. His skin was soft and pink, without any natural armor. His eyes were small and forward-facing, like a predator from some forgotten age. He carried no visible weapons. "This," Sereth said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "is what the Council sends to protect me." The human said nothing. He simply stood there, hands clasped behind his back, watching. "What is your name, creature?" Sereth asked. "Marcus Cole, Your Highness," the human replied. His voice was calm and flat. "Sergeant First Class, Earth Defense Forces. Assigned to your protection by order of the Galactic Council." Sereth let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Her mandibles clicked together in amusement. "My protection? Look at you. You have no shell, no claws, no venom glands. Your bones are hollow tubes of calcium that would shatter under the slightest pressure. Your species has been traveling among the stars for barely 300 years. She rose from her throne and descended the steps slowly, her 4 legs clicking against the crystal. Her courtiers watched in silence. They knew better than to speak when their queen was making a point. The Volanthi were building empires when your ancestors were still climbing down from trees, Sereth continued. She stopped directly in front of Marcus and looked down at him. She was nearly twice his height. "What could a soft, wet, fragile little thing like you possibly protect me from?" Marcus met her gaze without flinching. "Whatever comes, Your Highness." The throne room erupted in clicking laughter. Sereth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth behind her mandibles. "How adorable. Very well, little human. You may serve as my decorative pet. Stand in the corner and try not to embarrass yourself." She turned and walked back to her throne. Behind her, Marcus simply nodded and moved to the position she had indicated. He stood with his back to the wall, his eyes slowly scanning the room, watching every movement, every shadow, every breath. The days that followed were filled with small cruelties. Sereth made Marcus stand through ceremonies that lasted 16 hours. She gave him quarters without climate control, forcing him to endure temperatures that swung from freezing to boiling. She made him carry her packages through the market district while her guards laughed and made jokes about keeping pets. Through it all, Marcus said nothing. He simply endured. Captain Virith, commander of the Royal Guard, was the first to notice something strange. He stood beside his queen during a diplomatic reception that had already stretched past midnight. His guards had rotated 3 times. Fresh warriors replaced tired ones every 4 hours, as was standard. The human had not moved. "Your Highness," Virith said quietly, leaning close to Sereth's ear. "The human has been standing for 37 hours. Sereth glanced toward the corner where Marcus stood. He looked exactly the same as he had at the start, alert, watchful, still. Perhaps he is too stupid to know he should be tired. Perhaps, Virith agreed. But his voice carried doubt. Later that night, long after the reception had ended, Virith walked past the human's quarters. The door was open. Marcus sat inside, not sleeping, but cleaning a simple knife with a cloth. His movements were mechanical and precise. His eyes never stopped moving, checking the doorway, the window, the shadows in the corner. Do you ever sleep? Lyrith asked. Marcus looked up. In shifts. 20 minutes at a time. It is enough. Enough for what? To stay sharp. Marcus returned to cleaning his knife. Your guards rotate every 4 hours because they need rest. They are stronger than me, faster, better armored. But they tire. Everything tires eventually. Everything except humans? Marcus smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth in a way that should have looked threatening but somehow did not. We tire too, Captain. We just do not stop because of it. Virith stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the human work. Then he turned and walked away without another word. The next morning, Ambassador Krell from the Rithian Confederacy requested a private audience with the Queen. He was an old creature, his shell faded to pale gray, his eyes clouded with centuries of experience. He had served on the Galactic Council for longer than most species had existed. You mock your human guard, Krell said softly, settling into a chair across from Sarith. You treat him as a joke. Because he is a joke, Sarith replied. A diplomatic insult wrapped in soft skin. Is he? Krell tilted his head. Tell me, Your Majesty, do you know why the Council sent a human to protect you? Sarith waved a dismissive hand. Because they wanted to remind me that I am young and weak and must accept their gifts with gratitude. No, Krell leaned forward. They sent a human because 3 cycles ago, a human colony ship crashed on a death world. No technology, no weapons, no supplies. Just 200 soft, fragile humans against a planet that wanted to kill them. And they died, I assume. They survived. Krell's voice dropped lower. Not just survived. They thrived. When the rescue ships arrived 9 years later, they found a functioning settlement. The humans had tamed the local predators, built shelters from the bones of creatures that should have eaten them, and established farms in soil that was technically poisonous. He paused. They lost 60 people in 9 years. Any other species would have lost everyone in the first month. Sarith said nothing. The Council did not send you a human as an insult, Your Majesty. Krell rose from his chair, his old joints creaking. They sent you a human because something dark is coming. Something that has killed queens before. And when that darkness arrives, you will want a creature beside you that does not know how to die. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Do you know what the humans call themselves in their own ancient tongue? They call themselves survivors. It is not a boast. It is simply what they are. He shook his head slowly. Stop mocking your guard, young queen. You may very soon need him. The door closed behind him. Across the room, standing in his corner, Marcus Cole watched the queen with eyes that never stopped moving. Waiting. Always waiting. Ambassador Krell's words stayed with Sarith longer than she wanted to admit. She found herself watching the human more closely in the days that followed, looking for signs of the strength the old diplomat had described. She saw nothing but a small, soft creature standing quietly in corners. So she decided to test him. The Festival of 3 Suns was the longest ceremony in the Volanthi calendar. It lasted for 3 full days without pause. Courtiers attended in shifts, sleeping in nearby chambers and returning refreshed. The Royal Guard rotated every 6 hours instead of 4. Given the special circumstances, Sarith ordered Marcus to attend the entire ceremony. No breaks, no rest, no food except what could be eaten while standing. Let us see how long your endurance lasts, she said, smiling with cold amusement. Marcus simply nodded. As you command, Your Highness. The first day passed. Marcus stood motionless against the wall, watching the endless procession of priests and dancers and singers. His face showed nothing. His body did not sway or tremble. The second day passed. Sarith found herself glancing at him more often, waiting for signs of weakness. She saw none. His eyes remained sharp. His breathing remained steady. He stood as still as the crystal pillars around him. By the third day, the courtiers had begun to notice. They whispered to each other behind their claws, pointing at the human who had not moved in 60 hours. Even Sareth's elite guards, the finest warriors in the Empire, were showing signs of fatigue despite their rotations. Marcus looked exactly the same as he had at the beginning. When the ceremony finally ended, Sareth descended from her throne and walked directly to where Marcus stood. "You should be dead," she said, "or at least collapsed. No creature can stand for 3 days without consequence." "I am tired, Your Highness," Marcus admitted. His voice was slightly rough, but steady. "But tired is not the same as broken." "How?" "Your species is supposed to be weak." Marcus considered the question. "On my homeworld, there is a hunting technique that my ancestors used for millions of years. We call it persistence hunting. We could not outrun our prey. We could not overpower it. So we simply followed it. Walking, jogging, never stopping. The prey would run and hide, over and over. But we kept coming. Eventually, after hours or days, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. And we would still be walking toward it." He met her eyes. "Humans are not built to be strong, Your Highness. We are built to outlast." Sareth said nothing for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away, her mind troubled by thoughts she did not want to have. The next test came a week later. Captain Vireth's guards trained every morning in the combat arena beneath the palace. They practiced with blade and claw, moving at speeds that most species could not even see. They were perfect warriors, bred for battle across 100 generations. Sareth ordered Marcus to spar with them. "Let us see if your endurance extends to combat," she said from her viewing platform above the arena. "Try not to die too quickly. It would be inconvenient to request another human." Marcus stepped onto the sand floor of the arena. He carried only his simple knife. Across from him, a Volanthi warrior named Kethis drew 2 curved blades, each one longer than Marcus's entire arm. The fight lasted 11 seconds. Kethis moved like lightning, his blades a blur of silver. Marcus tried to block and dodge, but he was simply too slow. The final blow sent him sprawling across the sand, a thin line of red blood marking his cheek. Again, Sareth commanded. Marcus stood up. He faced a different warrior this time, one named Desik, who favored a long spear. The fight lasted 9 seconds. Marcus ended up on his back with the spear point at his throat. Again, 12 more times, Marcus fought. 12 more times, he lost. By the end, his arms were covered in cuts and bruises. His breathing was heavy. Blood dripped from a wound above his eye. But Sareth noticed something strange. Each fight lasted a little longer than the one before. In the first battle, Marcus had barely reacted to Kethis' attacks. By the 12th battle, he was anticipating moves before they happened. He still lost, but the margin grew smaller each time. "One more," she said. Kethis again. Marcus wiped blood from his face and turned to face his first opponent. Kethis smiled, confident and cruel. He attacked with the same lightning speed as before. This time, Marcus moved differently. He did not try to match Kethis' speed. Instead, he positioned himself where Kethis would be, not where he was. The first blade missed by inches. The second blade cut only air. Kethis stumbled, thrown off balance by his own momentum, and Marcus's knife flashed forward. It stopped 1 inch from Kethis' throat. The arena went silent. Kethis stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock. A human had just beaten him. A soft, slow, fragile human. How? Captain Vireth demanded. "You could barely block his attacks an hour ago." Marcus lowered his knife. "Humans learn quickly, Captain. It is another gift from our death world." Those who could not adapt did not survive. So we became very good at adapting. He looked up at Sereth on her platform. I will never be as fast as your warriors, Your Highness. I will never be as strong. But every time I fight them, I will learn. And eventually, learning will be enough. That night, Sereth sat alone in her private chambers, thinking about what she had witnessed. The human was not impressive by any normal measure. He was small and weak and slow, but there was something about him that she could not ignore. Something that made her uneasy in ways she did not understand. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Captain Vireth entered, his face grave. We have received intelligence, Your Highness. I wanted to bring it to you immediately. Speak. Vireth hesitated. The Hollow Choir has accepted a contract. You are the target. The words hit Sereth like a physical blow. The Hollow Choir were legends, myths, nightmares that parents used to frighten children. They were assassins who could step between dimensions, striking from angles that did not exist in normal space. They had killed 7 queens in the last 1,000 years. They had never failed a contract. How long do we have? Sereth asked, her voice barely steady. Unknown. They do not announce their attacks. They simply arrive, and then their target dies. Sereth closed her eyes. Fear wrapped around her heart like cold fingers. Double the guard. Triple it. Bring in the precognitive seers. Seal the palace. It will be done. Vireth turned to leave, then paused at the door. Your Highness, the human has asked to be stationed inside your personal chamber during the crisis. Inside my chamber? That is highly irregular. Yes, but he says he has studied the Hollow Choir. He believes he can help. Sereth almost laughed. A human, protecting her from the greatest assassins in the galaxy. It was absurd. Impossible. But Ambassador Krull's words echoed in her mind. You will want a creature beside you that does not know how to die. Grant his request, she said quietly. Put the human in my chamber. Vireth bowed and departed. In his quarters, Marcus Cole sat in the darkness, running through everything he knew about phase-shifting assassins. They were fast. They were deadly. They were invisible to most sensors and most eyes, but they were not invisible to him. Marcus had a gift that he had never told anyone about. A quirk of human evolution that let him see things others could not. He could track movement at the edge of perception. He could sense threats before they fully materialized. The Hollow Choir thought they were hunting a queen. They did not know they were walking into a trap. Marcus smiled in the darkness and began to prepare. 3 days passed in tense silence. The palace became a fortress. Guards stood at every door and window. Sensors lined every corridor. Precognitive seers sat in circles around the throne room, their minds reaching into possible futures. Searching for the moment of attack. And in Queen Sereth's private chamber, Marcus Cole stood watch. He had positioned himself in the corner farthest from the door, where shadows gathered thick and deep. From there, he could see the entire room. The massive bed with its silk curtains. The windows looking out over the crystal city. The door leading to the outer chambers where 6 elite guards waited. Sereth tried to sleep, but rest would not come. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, acutely aware of the human presence in her room. It should have felt like an invasion. Instead, strangely, it felt almost like safety. You believe you can stop them, she said into the darkness. The Hollow Choir, creatures that have killed beings far more powerful than you. Marcus's voice came from the shadows. I do not believe I can stop them, Your Highness. I know I can. That is either confidence or madness. Perhaps both. Sereth turned her head to look at him. She could barely see his outline in the darkness. Why do you care? You are here because the council ordered it. You owe me nothing. I have treated you poorly. There was a pause before Marcus answered. On Earth, there is an old code among soldiers. We protect those we are assigned to protect, regardless of how they treat us. It is not about owing. It is about duty. About honor. Honor, Sereth repeated. The word felt strange on their tongue. My people abandoned that concept long ago. We found it inefficient. Then perhaps that is why the council sent a human instead of a Volanthi. Sereth had no response to that. The fourth night began like the others. Sereth lay in her bed, pretending to sleep. Marcus stood in his corner, motionless as a statue. Outside, the precognitive seers continued their endless scanning of probability. Then, without warning, the seers began to scream. Sereth sat up, her heart's pounding. The screams were not sounds of warning. They were sounds of agony. Something was happening to the seers, something that had blinded them all at once. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the chamber. The windows, which should have shown the light of the crystal city, showed only black. Even the emergency lights failed to activate. Stay in your bed, Marcus said. His voice was calm, almost soft. Do not move. Do not make a sound. Sereth obeyed. She pulled her silk sheets around her like a child hiding from nightmares. And she watched the darkness with wide, terrified eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the shadows began to move. They did not move like normal shadows. They rippled and twisted, folding in on themselves in ways that hurt to look at. Sereth had read about phase shifting, about beings that could step between dimensions and exist in the spaces between reality. She had thought she understood what it meant. She had been wrong. The hollow choir materialized around her bed like ghosts rising from graves. There were 5 of them, tall and thin, their bodies wrapped in darkness that seemed to drink the light. Their faces were smooth and featureless except for their mouths, which smiled with teeth that looked like shards of broken glass. Little Queen, one of them said. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through dead trees. We have come for you. No species has ever stopped us. No power has ever turned us aside. Your death was written the moment our contract was signed. Sereth tried to speak, but terror had stolen her voice. She could only watch as the lead assassin raised a blade that seemed to be made of frozen shadow. Make your peace with whatever gods you worship, the assassin said, and know that your death will be quick. We are professionals. I agree, said a voice from the darkness behind them. Let us be professional about this. The assassin spun around. Marcus Cole stepped out of the shadows, and Sarah saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. They were focused with an intensity that seemed almost inhuman. They were tracking the assassins with perfect precision, following movements that should have been invisible. Impossible, the lead assassin hissed. You cannot see us when we are between dimensions. No species can see us. Humans can, Marcus said. Our eyes are designed to detect motion. Any motion. Even motion that exists between heartbeats. I have been watching you since you entered the room. The assassins exchanged glances. For the first time in their long existence, they felt something unfamiliar. It took them a moment to recognize it as uncertainty. You are one soft creature, the leader said, regaining its composure. We are 5. You have no weapons that can harm us. Our blades cut through dimensions themselves. You cannot possibly win this fight. Marcus reached behind his back and drew his knife. It was the same simple blade he had used in the training arena. Plain steel, warmed from years of use. I do not need to win, Marcus said. I just need to keep fighting until you are dead. The assassins attacked. They moved at speeds that defied comprehension, their bodies flickering between dimensions as they struck. Their blades came from angles that did not exist in normal space. Any other creature in the galaxy would have died in the first second. Marcus was not any other creature. He did not try to match their speed. He had learned that lesson in the training arena. Instead, he moved to where they would be, his body reacting to threats before they fully formed. His knife blocked the blade that materialized from the void. His body twisted away from claws that reached through folded space. The lead assassin thrust at his heart. Marcus shifted sideways and let the blade pass, then drove his elbow into the assassin's face as it tried to phase back to safety. The crack of impact echoed through the chamber. "First blood," Marcus said. The assassins regrouped. They were no longer smiling. "Kill him," the leader snarled. "Kill him now." All 5 attacked at once. The chamber became a storm of shadow and steel, blades cutting through air and space and reality itself. Marcus moved through it like a dancer, his knife flashing, his body bending and twisting. He took wounds. A blade cut across his shoulder, spraying blood. Claws raked his side, opening gashes that would have crippled a Volanthe warrior. A strike to his leg made him stumble, but he did not fall. Something was happening inside Marcus's body. Something primal and ancient, written into his genes across millions of years of evolution. Adrenaline flooded his system, shutting down pain receptors and flooding his muscles with energy. His vision sharpened until he could see individual particles of dust floating in the air. His heartbeat slowed to a steady drum. This was what humans had been designed for. Not speed, not strength, but the ability to keep fighting long after any other creature would have stopped. Marcus smiled, blood running down his face, and raised his knife. "Is that all you have?" he asked. The assassins looked at each other. They had hurt him badly. They had cut him a dozen times. Any other creature would be dead or dying. The human was still standing. The human was still smiling. The human was asking for more. "What are you?" the leader whispered. "I am human," Marcus said, "and I am just getting started." He attacked. The Hollow Choir had killed 7 queens in 1,000 years. They had slaughtered royal guards by the hundreds. They had walked through armies like ghosts, untouchable and unstoppable. They had never known fear. Tonight, they learned. Marcus moved through them like a storm. His knife was everywhere at once, blocking, cutting, stabbing. He was slower than them. He was weaker than them. But he predicted where they would be before they got there. He understood their patterns after watching just a few attacks. His brain evolved across millions of years on a world that tried constantly to kill his ancestors. Processed information faster than any computer. The first assassin died with surprise on its face, dotted a phase behind Marcus. Its blade aimed at his spine. It was a killing stroke that had worked 1,000 times before. But Marcus was already turning, already moving, his knife cutting upward in a perfect arc. The blade caught the assassin in the throat as it materialized. "One," Marcus said. The remaining 4 assassins spread out, circling him like wolves around wounded prey. But Marcus was not wounded prey. He was the wolf. He had always been the wolf. "He baited that attack," one of the assassins said, its voice trembling. "He let us think we were winning. He was stunning us. We can still kill him," the leader insisted. "He is just meat and bone. He bleeds. He can die, can he?" Another assassin asked. "Look at his wounds. He should not be standing." They were right. Marcus had taken damage that would have killed most creatures. Blood soaked through his armor. One arm hung slightly wrong, possibly broken. A deep gash across his ribs showed white bone beneath, but his eyes were clear. His stance was steady. His knife was still raised. "On my homeworld," Marcus said, "there is a saying. What does not kill you makes you stronger. It is not a metaphor for humans. It is biology. Pain makes us faster. Damage makes us more dangerous. You have hurt me badly. Thank you. I needed the motivation." He smiled. Blood dripped from his teeth. Now I am angry. The second assassin died trying to run Dot. It phased into the space between dimensions, trying to escape back to the void where it had come from. Marcus tracked its movement with those impossible human eyes, and threw his knife in a trajectory that intersected with the assassin's exit point. The blade caught it in the chest as it rematerialized. Marcus did not pause to retrieve his weapon. He pulled a second knife from his boot and kept moving. The third assassin died in direct combat. It was the strongest of the group, a creature that had personally killed 2 queens. It met Marcus blade to blade, matching him strike for strike. For 30 seconds, they fought at the edge of human endurance. Then the assassin made a mistake. It overextended on a thrust, putting too much faith in its speed. Marcus stepped inside its guard, grabbed its wrist, and broke its arm with a sharp twist. Before the assassin could phase away, Marcus drove his knife up under its chin. 3, Marcus said. The fourth assassin tried something desperate. It grabbed Sereth from her bed, wrapping shadow claws around her throat. The queen screamed as she was pulled into the space between dimensions, half her body phasing out of reality. Stop, the assassin commanded. Drop your weapons, or I will take her into the void. She will die there, slowly, over 1,000 years. Marcus froze. His eyes moved from the assassin to Sereth and back again. The queen was terrified, her 4 arms clawing uselessly at shadows she could not touch. You care about her, the assassin said, realizing the truth. The soft human cares about the queen who mocked him. How touching. How pathetic. Let her go, Marcus said. Your contract is with her, not me. Kill me instead. You would die for her? Yes, the assassin laughed. Then die knowing you failed. It began to pull Sereth deeper into the void. Another few seconds, and she would be gone forever. Lost between dimensions. Marcus made his decision. He charged. The assassin had expected him to surrender. It had expected begging, negotiating, maybe a desperate lunge that could be easily avoided. It had not expected Marcus to sprint directly toward it with absolutely no concern for his own survival. Marcus tackled the assassin and Sereth together. His momentum carried all 3 of them out of the phase space and crashing onto the floor. The impact tore Sereth free from the assassin's grip. She rolled away, gasping for air. Marcus and the assassin struggled on the ground. The creature was faster, stronger, but Marcus had gravity and leverage on his side. He wrapped his arms around the assassin's throat and squeezed. Humans, he grunted through gritted teeth. We invented wrestling before we invented fire. Your people have been killing for 1,000 years. My people have been fighting for 1,000,000. The assassin thrashed and clawed. It opened new wounds on Marcus's arms and chest. It tried to phase away, but could not concentrate enough to make the shift. Marcus squeezed harder. The muscles in his arms screamed. The wounds on his body pumped blood. He did not let go. We call this a chokehold, Marcus said. It works on any creature with a neck, even creatures from the void. The assassin stopped moving. 4, Marcus whispered. He released the body and staggered to his feet. The leader of the hollow choir stood alone now, its 4 companions dead around it. It looked at Marcus with something that might have been horror. What are you? It asked again. No creature should be able to do what you have done. You are dying. Your body is failing. How are you still standing? Marcus swayed on his feet. The assassin was right. His body was shutting down. He had lost too much blood. His vision was starting to blur at the edges, but he had one fight left in him. He would always have one fight left. Humans do not know how to quit, he said. It is our greatest weakness. It is also our greatest strength. The leader attacked. It was faster than the others, more skilled, more desperate. Its blade cut through Marcus's side, through his arm, through his leg. It was killing him piece by piece. Marcus kept coming. "Why will you not fall?" The leader screamed, striking again and again. "Because she's behind me," Marcus answered. "Because I made a promise. Because I am human, and humans do not stop until the job is done." He caught the leader's wrist on its final strike. Their eyes met. "My species spent 200,000 years as prey," Marcus said. "We were hunted by everything bigger than us. Do you know how we survived?" He twisted the leader's arm, forcing it to release its blade. "We learned to hunt back." Marcus drove his knife into the leader's heart. The assassin's eyes went wide with shock, with disbelief, with something that looked almost like respect. "5," Marcus said. The leader of the hollow choir fell and did not rise. Marcus stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the bodies of 5 legendary assassins. Blood dripped from dozens of wounds. His legs trembled. His vision was almost completely dark now, but he had won. "The hollow choir," he said to no one in particular, "has failed a contract." Then his legs gave out, and he began to fall. He never hit the ground. Sereth caught him before he landed, her forearms wrapping around his broken body. She held him close, this small, soft, impossible creature who had just done what no one in the galaxy thought possible. "Stay with me," she said. "Do not die. That is a royal command." Marcus smiled weakly. "I will try my best, Your Highness." "Sereth," she whispered. "My name is Sereth." "Sereth," Marcus repeated. Then everything went dark. The Royal Medical Bay had never treated a human before. Volanthi doctors surrounded the bed where Marcus Cole lay unconscious, their instruments beeping warnings and confusion. His wounds were terrible. He had lost enough blood to kill 3 Volanthi warriors. His right arm was broken in 2 places. 4 ribs were cracked. Internal injuries had caused bleeding that should have been fatal hours ago, and yet, somehow impossibly, he was alive. "His heart should have stopped," the chief physician said, staring at the readouts. "His brain should have shut down from lack of oxygen. Every medical model we have says this creature should be dead." Queen Sereth stood at the window, watching the human breathe. Each breath was shallow and weak, but it was still breath. "Still life, but he is not dead," she said quietly. "No, Your Highness. He is not." The physician shook his head in wonder. "His body is doing something we have never seen before. It is healing itself. The cells around his wounds are multiplying at an incredible rate. Scar tissue is forming over injuries that opened only hours ago. His blood is regenerating faster than we can measure. How is that possible? We do not know. Perhaps this is normal for humans. Perhaps they are designed to survive things that would kill any other species." The physician paused. He called his homeworld a death world. "I am beginning to understand what that means." The days that followed were long and difficult. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, his body fighting battles that the Volanthi doctors could only observe. Fevers came and went. Wounds that had been open in the morning were closed by evening. Bones that had been broken began to knit together with frightening speed. Sereth visited him every day. She told herself it was duty. He had saved her life, and she owed him her attention. But deep down, she knew it was something more. She was fascinated by him, by his stubbornness, by his refusal to die. On the 5th day, Marcus opened his eyes. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough and dry. "The Royal Medical Bay," Sereth answered. She was sitting beside his bed, a book open in her lap. "You have been unconscious for 5 days. The assassins? All dead. You killed them all." She set her book aside and leaned forward. "Marcus, do you understand what you did?" The Hollow Choir had never failed a contract. They had never even lost a single member to resistance. "You killed 5 of them, alone." Marcus tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain flashed through his body, and he fell back against the pillows. "I just did my job, Your Highness." "Sereth," she corrected him. "We discussed this. You saved my life. You can use my name, Sereth." A small smile crossed his face. Old habits are hard to break. She studied him for a long moment. "How did you do it?" "Our finest warriors could not even scratch those creatures." "You are smaller than them, slower. Your body is soft. How did you win?" Marcus considered the question. "Humans are not built like other species. We do not have claws or shells or venom. But we have something else. We have the ability to keep going when every part of our body says to stop. We call it willpower, or stubbornness, or spite." He shrugged, then winced at the pain. "The assassins expected me to fall when they hurt me. Every other species would have. But I just got angry instead. You fight harder when you are injured. All humans do. It is how we survived our homeworld. Earth is not a gentle place. Everything there wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the water in some places. We learned to take damage and keep moving. It became part of our biology." Sereth shook her head slowly. "I mocked you. I called you weak and soft. I treated you like a pet. You did. I was wrong." The words seemed to cost her something. Queens did not admit mistakes, but she said them anyway. "I was completely and utterly wrong." Marcus reached out and took her hand. His grip was weak, but his eyes were warm. "You could not have known. Your people have never met anything like humans before. Neither had the Hollow Choir." He smiled. "They learned. So did you. That is all anyone can ask." 2 weeks later, Marcus was able to walk again. The Volanti doctors called it a miracle. A human would have called it Tuesday. Marcus had been hurt worse than this before. He had the scars to prove it. The court gathered to witness his first public appearance since the attack. Marcus walked into the throne room under his own power, wearing his old black armor over bandages that still covered half his body. The courtiers who had laughed at him before now watched in respectful silence. "Queen." Sereth rose from her throne and descended the crystal steps to meet him. "Marcus Cole of Earth," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "You have saved my life and ended the threat of the Hollow Choir. Such service demands recognition." She held out her hand. In it was a medal that Marcus did not recognize. It was made of the same living crystal as the palace, and it glowed with inner light. "This is the Star of Volanthi," Sereth continued. "It is the highest honor our empire can bestow. In 12,000 years of history, it has been given to only 7 individuals. You are the 8th. You are the first non-Volanthi to ever receive it." Marcus bowed his head as she pinned the medal to his chest. When he looked up, he saw something in her eyes that made his heart beat faster. "I am honored, Your Sereth." She smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had ever given him. "You earned it." That evening, the Galactic Council sent a formal inquiry to the Volanthi Empire. News of the Hollow Choir's defeat had spread across 100 worlds, and everyone wanted to know the same thing. How? Sereth composed a response personally. She broadcasted across every channel, to every species, to every corner of the galaxy. You ask how one human defeated the greatest assassins in history. The answer is simple. We underestimated them. We all did. We looked at their soft skin and their short lives and their lack of natural weapons, and we assumed they were weak. We were fools. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Humans do not stop. They do not surrender. They do not know how to die when they still have something to protect. They are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the fastest or the most intelligent or the most advanced. But they are the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most unwilling to accept defeat. Her voice hardened. The Volanthi Empire formally requests an alliance with humanity. Send us more humans. As many as you can spare. Not because they are weapons, but because they are something better. They are survivors. And in a galaxy that grows darker by the day, survivors are exactly what we need. She ended the transmission. Across the galaxy. In 100 different capitals on 100 different worlds. Leaders and generals and kings watched the broadcast and began to ask themselves the same question. What else have we underestimated about the humans? That night, Sareth found Marcus on the balcony of the royal chambers, looking up at the stars. "You should be resting," she said. "I have rested enough." He did not turn around. "I was thinking about home. About Earth. I have not seen it in 3 years. Sareth moved to stand beside him. The night was cold, but neither of them seemed to notice. "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. It is a beautiful world in its own dangerous way. The sunsets are orange and red, like fire in the sky. The oceans are so big that you can sail for weeks without seeing land. And everywhere you go, things are trying to kill you." He smiled. "It makes you appreciate being alive. It sounds terrifying." "It is. But it is also wonderful." He finally turned to look at her. "That is the thing about humans, Sareth. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. And instead of making us afraid, it made us stubborn. It made us refuse to quit. It made us love life more than anything, because we know how easily it can be taken away." Sareth felt something shift in her chest, an emotion she had not felt in a very long time. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "You already apologized. Not for the mockery, for the assumption. I assumed you were less than me because you were different. I did not bother to look deeper. I did not try to understand." She reached out and took his hand. "I will not make that mistake again." Marcus looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. "What happens now? Now you heal completely. And then?" She hesitated, uncertain for the first time in her reign. "And then perhaps you might stay. Not as a guard. Not as a protector. But as something else." "As what?" Sareth smiled. "As a friend. To start." Marcus smiled back. "I think I would like that." They stood together on the balcony, human and Volanthi, watching the stars spin slowly overhead. Behind them, the palace glowed with living crystal. Ahead of them, the future stretched out like an open road dot and across the galaxy. Other species watched and wondered and began to understand a simple truth that humans had known all along. The universe was vast and dark and full of dangers. But as long as there were those who refused to give up, who kept fighting even when all hope seemed lost, who stood their ground and said, "No further," then the darkness would never truly win. Humans had a word for creatures like that. They called them survivors. And the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant.